"What say you?" repeated the voice. Before I could turn around to see the owner of this voice, the figure had swiftly darted across and grabbed hold of Jenny by the neck. I turned to face him. It was the doctor from the hospital. History was repeating itself. This was the second time he had hold of Jenny. "Well, well, here we all are again. Well, minus a few of my staff, which you burned to death, along with my patients." I could feel the eyes of Mr. and Mrs. Overgate staring straight through my head. "What?" they said in horror. Mr. Harkin spoke with a smile permanently on his face. "He's been busy. Not only has he turned off the life support to some critically ill patients, he's also set fire to them and the doctors too." "It wasn't like that," I interjected, but even I did not believe that argument. "It all seems rather academic now, doesn't it? You see, one of those doctors—" I jumped in. "You're no doctor. You stole those jackets. He was torturing the patients there." He pulled out a long surgical knife. One might imagine it is used to slit open stomachs. He placed it right under Jenny's long, supple neck. "As I was saying, one of those doctors you burned to death was my brother. I saw him burn as I left you. My own brother melt in front of me in balls of flame, writhing about the floor in agony, screaming out as his insides burned, his heart burning with heat until it was no more. But as you can see from my face, it's no picture anymore. I suffered from your meddling. Look at me." He pulled the knife closer to Jenny's throat. I did. His face was dark, a purple, reddish color, with flakes of grey skin peeling off. "I came to this hospital for some painkillers. You see, it hurts like hell," he shouted, his eyes staring wide at me. "Whilst there, I started my recruitment process. A doctor must have his staff. And with all this going on, it's been terribly difficult to keep at the standards I'm used to. But you'll be glad to know I've enlisted a matron to make sure everything's clean. Wouldn't want you catching anything," he laughed. The matron was a stocky-built man who didn't fit well into his matron-style uniform. He had a cigar firmly between his teeth and would occasionally spit something out from his mouth. The others were just as aggressive-looking, and even more out of place than the doctor, who continued his speech. "And as luck would have it, here you are, with your little girlfriend. You see, I gave her back to you once, but this time, this time I shall have my revenge. Why should you worry about this black girl anyway?" I could see Jenny's eyes staring up towards me. She didn't utter a word, gulping slowly so that the knife wouldn't cut her throat. I looked back at the doctor. I returned his racist comment. "Do we not bleed the same blood?" He smiled back at me and gently slid the blade from left to right across Jenny's throat. She let out a yelp and slumped to the ground in the pool of her own blood. The doctor licked the blood of his knife. "Oh yes, you're right, we do. Oops, sorry, too late." I quickly ran to Jenny, placing my hand on her throat to keep the blood in. But she had died. Probably inhaled and suffocated on her own blood. She was dead. "Oh, how rude of me. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Valentine. Nice to meet you. Sorry about the circumstances." There he was, towering above me. My heart filled full of rage at the death of Jenny. I launched myself straight at him, sending him to the floor, and started to beat his already frazzled body to a pulp. But with ease, even in his condition, he still managed to overturn me and leave me on the ground, his foot straight at my face. What was it about stamping on the face? Forgotten now. Must seem like déjà vu to you, Mr. Bishop. How did you know my name? I thought. James Bishop, he continued. He removed the pressure from his foot, allowing me to stand up and face him again. Déjà vu? What do you mean? Oh, of course, you don't know what I did. They never caught me, did they? Caught you? For what? What are you talking about? The murder of your wife. What are you talking about? I squared him up. It was me. I killed your wife. Now I've killed Jenny. Your little piece on the side. That's déjà vu. You didn't kill my wife, didn't I? How do you know? I remember her last words as she lay on the floor, bleeding to death. But I've forgotten them now. I suspect they weren't important. Well, not to me anyway. Shame. I suspect they would be to you. You're lying, you bastard. You could have read that in a newspaper. Yes, I could, I guess. But I suppose the point is that you'll never know whether I did it or not. I suspect that it will eat away at you, much like the death of my brother will me. I suppose to a man of equality that will seem fair and just. We could shake each other's hands and have done with it. Let what they are called, those little things, bygones be bygones. But you see, I'm not a man of equality. He grabbed hold of Mrs. Overgate, knocking Mr. Overgate, who tried to struggle, to the ground. His other thugs grabbed hold of me and Harkin. The matron looked towards the mess of Jenny and back to the doctor and frowned, saying, "Not more mess." Valentine pulled out a clean surgical knife. I saw him insert it like a hot rod through hot metal into the heavily pregnant Mrs. Overgate. I turned away. I couldn't watch. I could hear her screams and the sound of flesh being ripped apart, and the sound much like when a baby ewe is born out of the sack of liquid, the squelching noise. I even thought I heard one baby cry. When I turned around again, there on the floor was a mutilated baby, still attached by cord to its mother. Mr. Overgate, unconscious, awoke to find the carnage and rushed to his wife, bleeding to death on the green grass below her. She didn't say a word, just stared towards her lifeless baby resting on the ground, buried before it was even born. Oh, don't be so surprised. I performed this operation many a time, usually in a professional capacity. Termination of life, you see. There really is no future at all. And I suppose you could have tried to stop me. Wise you didn't. I'd only have to kill you. But of course, I suspect I will anyway, just at my choosing. Time is such a precious gift. He took out a gun and held it out. Now let's all move. He fired a warning shot to Mr. Overgate's feet to show him he was prepared to use it. Mr. Overgate, myself, and Harkin walked in front of Dr. Valentine along with his thugs, constantly looking behind us as we left Mrs. Overgate to slowly bleed to death.